Hey guys, Bree here from the No Guilt Mom podcast, and have we got the perfect Father's Day gift for you? We recently partnered with Melon Premium Headwear, and they are the absolute best hats out there, worth every penny. They are amazing. So this weekend, my husband and I went up on a trip to Sedona, my first trip ever. Gotta say, I can't believe it took me 20 years to get up there, but it was fantastic. And we had just gotten one of these hats. My husband has been searching for the last few months trying to find a really good, durable, waterproof hat to take when we go hiking, kayaking, paddleboarding, all of that, and has been unsuccessful. And I kid you not, I have probably been to at least 5 different stores in 5 different cities with him trying to find the perfect hat. He got to use his melon hat this weekend, and oh my gosh, he loved it. It was fantastic and it looked amazing. We wore it hiking. There was absolutely no issues. All the sweat, oh, it was a little bit hot. They have an amazing fabric that makes it so there's no sweat stains, no sink. They clean up super easy even when they get dirty. Guys can wear them anywhere. They offer 3 different size options to fit everyone's head, multiple shape options to choose from. My personal favorite was the one that we got to try out, the Legend Dad hat. It is fantastic. I'm going to be gifting one to my brother-in-law here for Father's Day. I loved it. And if you can't decide which one to gift, you can always get a gift card. So go get your hat. Use the code GUILT at checkout for 30% off your order. If you're trying to figure out a Father's Day gift, trust me, this is exactly what they want. Go to Melon, that's MELIN.com, and use the code GUILT at checkout for 30% off. Melon rarely offers discounts, so you won't want to miss this opportunity.
Parents who believe a child's behavior is affected by sugar are more likely to perceive their children as hyperactive when they've been led to believe the child has just had sugar. So it's an interesting thing. It's all about expectations and how we expect our kids to behave. Welcome to the No Guilt Mom podcast. I am your host, Joanne Crone, joined here by the lovely Brie Tucker.
Why, hello, everybody. How are you?
We are live again in our podcast Facebook group. So if you have not joined that yet, come on over, join us there. We put a link for you right in the show notes. It's a cool way to be involved in the show. We take people's comments and we work it into the episode. So if you have like a specific question during an episode, you like pop it right there in the chat and we make an episode just for you. And today we are getting into myths. And I love myth busting. I find it to be like the funnest thing when I've thought something for so long and then the research proves that, hey, actually, this isn't true. Like it brings me a lot of joy, Brie.
I can see that. I can see I don't know. It depends on if I'm really passionate about it. And like I said, like we picked 3 myths today,
Mhm.
and we each have one of those 3 that we're very passionate about, that we're like, ah, can't wait to
Yes.
bust. So yeah, I
Yes.
mean, I guess so. Yeah. I have a lot of like when it's something new that I thought was something different. But
Yeah.
also
Well,
maybe
this
being a home visitor and having done that for so long, like I get us also a little nervous if there's something that I was like told was the case and then
mhm.
it isn't anymore. And I'm like, oh crap, I told people wrong information. So
But I mean, I think that happens throughout our whole lives. Like we do what we do until we know better.
yeah.
It happened to me in teaching. Like I did things during when I was a teacher that I thought was best practice that now it's like is not. Like rewards and punishments for one. I had kids go clip down in the back of the classroom because I thought it created accountability. And now I'm like, oh my gosh, why did I do that? Like poor children who had to go do that. I can't believe that. So I think that, the more you learn, the more you change your behavior. It's all
The
about
more
growth.
yeah, I'm seeing that little like NBC thing from like the 80s. The more you
The
know,
more
little
you
star
know.
just shooting across this. The more you know.
So, here's the myths you have to look forward to today. Number 1, sugar makes kids hyper. Total myth. We're going to debunk for you. Number 2 is if kids are hyper, they're not ready to go to sleep yet. Other myth. And number 3 is Bree's personal favorite.
If your kid isn't hyper, then they definitely don't have ADHD.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we can't wait to get started and let's get on with the show.
You want mom life to be easier. That's our goal too. Our mission is to raise more self sufficient and independent kids, and we're going to have fun doing it. We're going to help you delegate and step back. Each episode will tackle strategies for positive discipline, making our kids more responsible and making our lives better in the process. Welcome to the No Guilt Mom Podcast.
Okay, Bree, let's get into these myths, starting with number one, because I get so up in arms with all of the claims about foods causing these behaviors in kids. I get so mad when people are like, yes, research shows that you shouldn't eat these things, or research shows that these are bad for your gut, or research shows that these dyes should be fed because they cause ADHD. And I'm like, hold the phone. A lot of these claims are being made based on one singular study that was done one time, and many of them have actually been debunked or not been able to be proven in subsequent things. So it's like whenever food's involved, I'm like, hold up what you're saying to somebody. And a lot of that's my personal experience. I mean, I'm pretty open with the fact that I had an eating disorder. I'm still very prime for an eating disorder and disordered eating in my life. And I figuring out what foods to eat is such a source of stress
Oh,
for people.
yeah.
It's such a source of stress. And when you're constantly worried about something having a ingredient in it that's going to be bad for you, it gets it really hard to find foods that you actually first enjoy. Second, that can provide you with all the nutritional stuff that you need and just eliminate the stress around eating. So this is why I get so passionate about it. And this myth that sugar causes kids to be hyper is everywhere. I heard it as a teacher. I hear it from other parents. My sister actually just said it the other night when her son was bouncing around the room and she's like, "Oh, I shouldn't have given you those ice pops." And I turned to her and I'm like, "Did you actually know that sugar doesn't cause kids to be hyper?" And she's like, "No." And she's in the medical profession too. And so this is pervasive there as well. So let's break it down.
Yes.
Let's break it down, Brie.
You was gonna say you did a lot of it's so just real quick, we normally do an outline for an episode, and the research can be all over the place as to how much in detail we go. But in this one, Joanne did the first myth, and I did the next two. Joanne's one myth of research is 2 pages long. My 2 myths are 1 page long with the research. So we have a lot to back up the sugar one. So let's get started on this. Where did
Yes.
this
Okay.
come from? Because we all have heard it.
We've all heard it. So this came from allergist Benjamin Feingold in 1975. He published something called the Feingold Diet. And this diet advocated a diet free of salicylate. I'm so sorry if I butchered that word for everybody. Salicylate.
We are not scientists, FYI, in case you were thinking we were.
I would say scientist is not it, but salicylates.
Yeah.
Let's call it salicylates. That sounds like it should be it. Salicylates.
Sounds good to me.
Food-
It works.
As Brie and Joanne, who's it's like you have one job on a podcast, talk. We're butchering the words.
Hey, nobody at no
one
point
job done
does
for
this
all.
talking include correctly articulating or pronouncing words that we do not see in our day-to-day lives. So I say it's okay.
This new book I'm reading actually had a word in it I had never seen. It is spelled Inchoate. And it's now I'm gonna butcher the pronunciation. Inchoate. Inchoate. It's called inchoate. It means just beginning to form. Inchoate.
That sounds like a
And
New York Times crossword.
exactly. And
me.
I showed it to my husband and he's like, "Oh, that word. I've always pronounced it inchoate or something, but it's inchoate." Inchoate.
I've never seen that word nor heard that word in
Now you're
conversation.
gonna see it everywhere.
No, I will not. I
Anyways,
still will
getting
not.
back to the getting back to the salicylates.
Okay.
This allergist, Benjamin Feingold, he advocated a diet free of salicylates, food colorings, and artificial flavoring for treating hyperactivity. So, all of those things that you hear right now about ADHD and diet actually go back to the 70s with this one guy. He didn't call for eliminating sugar specifically, but he did suggest to like many parents that food additives were a very bad thing for kids and hyperactivity. In a 1978 study published in the journal Food and Cosmetics Toxicology, it found that hyperactive children given glucose tolerance tests had results that suggested reactive hypoglycemia, which is low blood sugar. So that's where this whole idea came
Okay,
from,
wait, can I
these
just
two
say that the fact
places.
that they put cosmetics to there is an actual journal about cosmetic toxicology is very
Yes.
unnerving to me.
There's a journal for everything. There's a
And they
journal for
put food
everything.
with the cosmetics? Like, I don't are
Mhm.
people eating their lipstick out there? Like, I don't know, that just seems weird. Okay, go on. Go on. I digress.
Flavored
My
lipstick,
weird
that would be a
thoughts.
good one, Brie. That would
Ugh.
be a good one. So, when you look at the actual research involved, and when you're talking about actual research, it has to be valid and it looks at these three things to make it credible. First of all, that there were known quantities of sugar in the diets. So, like they knew how much sugar was being
Mhm.
consumed. The study compared the effects of sugar with those of a placebo. And that's a substance without any active ingredients, something where people think they're eating sugar, but they're actually not eating sugar in this case. And the children, parents, and researchers involved in the studies never knew which children were given which thing. So those are the three things when you're looking at studies that makes a study credible in this realm. And what they found out was incredibly not surprising, but counter to the myth. There's actually an April 2024 Washington Post article published about this exact thing where they interview Mark Rollrage, who is a professor in developmental and behavioral pediatrics at the University of Oklahoma. And he says it's still a strong belief, but it's a total myth that sugar causes hyperactivity. And Rollrage was actually, he was the one who conducted studies in the 90s that disproved the notion that sugar causes ADHD in children as well, just as a side note. But what they found is that neither sugar nor the artificial sweetener aspartame affected behavior or cognitive function among children whose parents perceived them as high energy, sugar sensitive, compared with those with normal behavior, even when the sugar intake exceeded typical dietary levels. And that's taken right from the Washington Post article. And another analysis in 1995 by the Journal of the American Medical Association said that sugar in the diet did not affect children's behavior. And to top it off, this is something else I found, Brie. The CDC, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, also states that sugar doesn't make kids hyper. We have like a massive organization stating this as well. And yet the common belief is that sugar makes kids hyper. So when you look at hyperactivity in kids, there are actually other reasons that kids could be hyper. And this was from the August 1994 Journal of Abnormal Child Psychology. So look, I am quoting all my sources for y'all. I'm putting it in there. But what it showed is that parents who believe a child's behavior is affected by sugar are more likely to perceive their children as hyperactive when they've been led to believe the child has just had sugar. So it's an interesting thing. It's all about expectations and how we expect our kids to behave.
Like
Yes.
when you believe something happens, you will look for the evidence to support that. And when it
Mhm.
comes to, like, seeing
Exactly.
whether or not your kid is hyper or not, like, that's a very subjective. I mean, it seems like it would be objective, right? It seems like it
Yeah.
would be very easy to say hyperactivity versus non-hyperactivity. Like, my kid is hyper right now, my kid is not hyper. And the truth of the matter is, unless you have a kid who is sleeping for the non-hyper and a kid who is running around screaming like Macaulay Culkin and like Home Alone,
Yeah.
unless you have those two extremes, everything else in the middle is subjective.
It
So,
is.
yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
And a lot of people may say, like, especially teachers, but Joanne, the day after Halloween is chaos in the classroom. And I'm like, yeah, it is chaos in the classroom because kids have been taken out of their routine. They have probably stayed up really, really late at night. It is a very stimulating event and holiday. And let's face it, most of the adults expect the kids to be crazy. And so when you expect a behavior as an adult, you're more likely to let those behaviors go. So, like, as a teacher in my classroom, I thought Halloween was just a loss. Like, after the day after Halloween, I was like, okay, this is just a loss. We're just going to plan fun activities. And I planned fun activities because I didn't expect the kids to be able to concentrate. I wish I could go back and be like, okay, you had a lot of sugar last night. You probably didn't get much sleep as you're used to last night. Cool. We're going to try some things, but it's not the sugar that is making you feel hyper right now. It's actually like your lack of sleep and things. So let's be really easy on
I was gonna
ourselves tonight and
ask
see what
you. I was
happens.
gonna ask you, like, so are you saying you would go back and you would have changed what you did, or you still would have done the same thing, which it sounds like you still would have done the same thing, but you would have
I would
had a
have done the same
different
thing.
mindset as to why you were doing it.
Exactly. I would have had a different
Yeah.
mindset because, yeah, they are crazy because they're out of routine, but it's not the sugar. It is the probably lack of sleep and just as something that was really stimulating for them last night. And they're super tired and worn
Well,
out and just
yeah.
today.
Another thing to keep in mind with that kind of feeds into that bias, and this
Yeah.
I hope everybody's gonna be like, "Oh, yeah, that's totally true." Like, when chances are good that we don't give our kids a ton of sugar. And that could be for a lot of different reasons. What, right? Like,
Hmm.
okay, I don't let my kid eat an entire carton of Oreos. And why?
No.
Because not necessarily because of the sugar, because I know that after they eat that entire carton of Oreos, they're going to have a stomach ache because of, first of all the food they ate that was too much.
Mhm.
Two, it probably isn't full of like, ingredients that they have on a regular basis. So their tummy's like, what the heck is this? And 3, like, I don't know what my 3 was, I lost my train of thought. But my point is like, you probably don't have a lot. It's something that is limited how often they get it. So, I
Yeah.
don't know about you, but when I get something that I really love, like my macaroons from Decadent Macaroons, shout out to Decadent Macaroon and Gilbert. I love you guys. You are just the best thing in the whole wide world.
Send Brie all the
Yes,
macarons.
send me all the macaroons. So, like, when I get to go get a macaroon, I get excited. I, like, jump up and down, I get a little giddy, and, like, I get a little pep in my step, I am, like, good to go. So, do I seem more active? Yes,
Yeah.
but it has nothing to do with the sugar. It's because I'm
It has
excited
nothing to
that
do with
I'm
sugar.
getting something that I really like. So that's another thing to kinda keep in mind with this whole bias confirmation, seeing kids get hyperactive after eating sugar. There could be a
Yeah.
piece of it, there likely is a piece of it that they're just excited that they're getting to have this whatever item it
The
is that
treat.
has sugar in it.
Exactly. I dance when I get something sweet. Like, if something tastes really good, I think you've
Your
seen my
salt and
dance. It's
straw?
like, "Oh, so good." I'm dancing. Yeah, I'm dancing, like it happens
Yeah.
like that. Now, just because sugar doesn't cause hyperness, it doesn't mean that we're suggesting you eat sugar with wild abandon. Like, there are other downfalls to
You're
sugar,
still gonna
such
get
as
tummy aches probably because your body's not used
they're
to it.
also empty calories. There's not much nutrition in it. It's a way like your body's not getting what it needs out of it. So it's not a case to eat sugar, but just
Yeah.
to show you that sugar does not cause hyperactivity. So myth broken, busted, as they used to say on
I
Mythbusters. We
was gonna
like stamp the
say.
screen. Myth busted. Let's
Bum,
go on to our
bah.
next myth about children not being ready for bed and being not tired if they're hyperactive. And we're going to get into it right after this. This podcast is sponsored by Active Skin Repair, a skin health company helping people heal with natural, non toxic, medical grade ingredients. So, my son, he is a magnet for mosquito bites. He's covered in them every summer. And even though it's pretty early in the year, he's already started getting his first ones. So, we had Active Skin Repair on hand, and I sprayed a little bit on his bite. And he said that he couldn't feel the itching anymore. And it was such a cool thing to try because Active Skin Repair utilizes a molecule called hypochlorous acid. And when applied to the skin, the molecule works by mimicking the natural immune response to cleanse, soothe irritation, reduce inflammation, and support healing. Active Skin Repair can be used to treat a wide range of skin issues, including cuts, scrapes, burns, sunburn, rashes, and other types of skin damage. It is also safe and non toxic, making it suitable for use on all skin types, all parts of the body, and even on rosacea, eczema, and acne-prone skin. With over 500,000 happy customers, thousands of 5-star reviews, and ingredients so safe and clean that can be used from the youngest member of the family to the oldest, you now have one simple solution for all your family's skin health needs. So visit www.activeskinrepair.com to learn more about active skin repair, and to get 20% off your order, use code NOGUILT.
Today's podcast is sponsored by MIDI Health. Ever since turning 40, I've noticed some big changes, guys. But this year, when I turned 44, I gotta tell you, I started dealing with some crazy stuff. Suddenly, I couldn't sleep through the night anymore, waking up around 2 a.m. I started getting night sweats. Then the brain fog came in. It got so bad, I was struggling just to get like my daily work done. And no amount of caffeine was helping it. It was awful. Then my anxiety, it went into hyperdrive. I was dealing with major mood swings, anxiety, feelings of rage, which is not normal for me. And my metabolism just went kaput, done. It felt like my body had just been snatched by somebody else. Everything was weird. I was even having like weird, dry, itchy skin. It was crazy. Then I discovered that all of my symptoms could actually be connected to the hormone changes that happen for perimenopause and menopause. So I started searching for a solution and I found MIDI. MIDI clinicians are menopause experts that are dedicated to providing safe, effective, holistic care that includes both hormonal and non-hormonal FDA-approved solutions. Seriously, listen to the list of things that they can help you with. They can work with hot flashes, night sweats, trouble sleeping, painful sex, vaginal dryness, libido change, weight and body changes, brain fog, memory lapses, moodiness, anxiety, period problems, hair, skin changes, joint issues. I mean, it's the whole gamut, guys. And the best part is that MIDI care is covered by insurance and there's no memberships or hidden fees. You can enjoy virtual, no rush visits with a clinician from the comfort of your home. Their team is available via messaging, email, and phone to support your questions. And if you want to see somebody in person, they can even refer for in person treatment. So schedule a visit to discuss all of your symptoms that are going on now. You'll come out feeling heard and like you're not going crazy. Stop pushing through it alone. You deserve to feel great. Book your virtual visit today at joinmidi.com. That's joinmidi.com.
So we busted that sugar makes kids hyper. Myth number 2, if kids are hyper, they're not ready to go to sleep yet. I have seen this so much, and it is such a myth.
Right. Like it's interesting because what you see is that your kid is like crazy full of energy. So that means that they must have a ton of energy, right? Like
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
but no, that's not really it. So when I was doing some research on why does this actually happen? Because I always looked at it as it was like it's a slapstick thing. Like you're just so tired, you're almost delusional. But
Mhm.
there actually is a physiological reason for this. In my research, what I found was that when somebody doesn't get enough rest, their
Mhm.
body responds by making more cortisol and adrenaline so that they can stay awake. So it's like your body's way of being like, all right, let's tap into the reserves so that you can stay awake. And as a result, you tend to have more energy. And
Yes.
we see that more often in children than in adults because kids don't want to miss out on life. Life is exciting and fun. Think
Well,
about
we
like as an
see it
adult. Give me a nap time. Give me extra sleep. I am all for that.
sometimes adults are like that. I would have to say my husband is directly opposite of that. He will tell me that the reason he doesn't go to bed until 1 or 2 a.m. in the morning, he's like, "I'm not tired." I'm like, "I could tell you why you're not tired. You're so overtired that your body is
Yeah,
pumping cortisol and adrenaline
right.
through you." I don't tell him that. That would be like
He would have
total shutdown on
he
his part.
yeah. That's not going to be the best conversation. But my point is that it happens way less to adults than to children because adults are often more open to the idea of sleeping.
Some adults, yes.
Yes. Adults are often more open to sleeping than a child. Like if you were to like randomly poll 100 kids under the age of 10 and 100 people, like adults,
Mhm.
I don't know, say between the ages of 30 and 50, we would all be like, "Give me that nap now."
I look
I can get
forward
a
to
nap.
naps.
I'll
Sleeping
take a
is
nap.
my happy time. I love to sleep
Oh, I love
because
sleeping in. That's my
I feel like
favorite. A
I am
nice
so
dark
I
room.
cannot sleep in. I cannot sleep in. That is one thing I
I
cannot do.
well,
I love going to sleep and like being like so tired at the end of the day and just pulling my fuzzy blankets over me and like just falling asleep. And then when the sun comes up, immediately my brain goes like, "Okay, you're not doing enough, Joanne. Look at this beautiful sun time out time. You need to get outside. You need to take advantage of it."
you know what could help with
All these
that?
thoughts.
Blackout curtains. I gotta tell you, like,
Yeah.
I can't, you and I sleep in completely different manners. One thing I
Yeah.
learned this last time is I gotta bring my sleep mask. Like, I like it to be completely black. I can't stand any light
Oh, okay.
whatsoever. So
Mhm.
even the littlest light wakes me up. So yeah, so I am definitely a lights out and it helps for sure. But so going back to this myth, I'm kind of curious how many people have fallen under this because I feel like this one isn't, it's a myth, but I feel like it's a little bit more well known that it's a myth than the sugar one for sure. Like,
Yeah.
I think some people do know that, like, kids do get hyper when they're tired. And so do adults. Like, people in general. I should stop like arguing about kids because it's everybody in general, like you said, about your body like producing the cortisol and the adrenaline. But it
Well,
does make it so that it's like a walking contradiction. Like, kids get weirdly overexcited and seem to have so much energy. And if you tell them, "Oh, are you sleepy?" They'll be like, "Oh, heck no, I'm not sleepy."
yeah.
Nope,
No, they won't.
I'm
They won't
great.
say they're sleepy at all. They'll be bouncing off the walls. Like I see it happen. They become erratic. They like just become squirrely. Like my nephew actually, Tuesday, he was jumping from chair to chair in our downstairs basement, like like leapfrogging across the room. And then he would go and he would bonk like Josh on the head. And so Josh would turn around. He's like, "Ha ha, don't get me." And then he stood up on top of the chair and showed us how he could fart on command.
Oh, wow.
And that's when we saw that skill happen. But he was so tired. He was so tired. Like his body was being pumped full of adrenaline. And you wouldn't know that he was tired looking at him. You're just like, wow, that child has a lot of energy. And it's not your first instinct to be like, and it's bedtime.
Right? I mean, because I will say, right, like, adult or child, when someone gets to that point of sleepiness that their body is producing these extra hormones to keep them raring and going,
Mhm.
you cannot just slam on the brakes and be like, "Okay, bedtime," and they go, "Sounds great."
I
Right?
know.
It
Yeah.
doesn't it
It
doesn't
has
work that
to.
way. So you
It
have
doesn't.
to, yeah, so you gotta be a little sneaky when they get to this point, but, like, what we're trying to just point out is that, first of all, do not think, "Oh, we can't do bedtime. He's way too hyper. Like, I've gotta wear him out." Um,
Yeah.
no, no, like,
No, you don't wear them
yeah,
out. Just take them
feet,
into a like, the way that I took the
uh-huh,
situation because we had, like, a family situation going on, and so, like, I took control of getting him to bed, and I for I was like, "Let's go read some stories." Like, I had to get him in an activity that would calm him down because there's no going from, like, full speed, jumping from chair to chair to be like, "And fall asleep."
yeah,
You
and
can't do
cue
it.
bedtime.
You can't do it. And so, like, we went and we read 2 stories, and it was about 20 minutes, and he was calmer then. He was
Mhm,
more ready to consider bedtime then,
yeah.
even though he was still like, "Nope, still not tired." I'm like, "Well, cool. Oh, look, your mommy's back. She could lay down with you." And I was like, "Thank you
Yeah,
for not making my whole time with toddlers full time. Thank you. I'm done.
yeah.
I'm
You
done."
you lended your hand, you stepped in to help out. Yeah, like, so the whole point is that you need to create a calming environment to
Calm
help
down.
their body turn off the production of these hormones so that they can rest and get to that
Yeah.
point. That's the whole point of a sleep routine, actually, which is
Yeah.
typically suggested. Like, working in like the 0 to 5 area, we always would say bath, book, and bed. Like, if you
Mhm.
could do the 3 B's, that's normally a really short routine. It's really simple. Most people can adhere to it. I mean, not everybody can. And I'm saying most because I 100%, like you've heard us say over and over again on this podcast. Every family, every situation slightly different. There's no
Mhm.
perfect way to do it,
No perfect way to do
but
it.
that helps.
Amy in our podcast Facebook group says that her daughter becomes erratic. She gets wild and then her attitude kicks in and she gets
I
loud.
believe it.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
believe it.
Bedtime is and we are going to get into the next myth all about how kids need to be hyper, else they don't have ADHD right after this.
When it comes to raising kids, there's so much to consider. Things like, what do we feed them? When do we feed them? How do they sleep? What does it look like to raise kind kids? How does their nervous system work? How do I keep myself calm? What are my triggers? There's so much that comes into play, and we are distilling all of that information for you at Voices of Your Village podcast, where we bring experts in the field of early childhood and education and psychology and across the board so that you don't have to comb the internet for information. You get to show up and hang out and have shame-free, judgment-free conversations and insights into what it looks like to raise kind, empathetic, emotionally intelligent humans. I'm Alyssa Blask Campbell. I have a master's degree in early childhood education. I'm a mom of 2, and I am walking this journey right alongside you doing this work. Come hang out with me at Voices of Your Village, and we can dive into real conversations with actionable tips.
Hey, are you a parent of a teenager? Are you feeling overwhelmed about how to be what they need while also holding limits and boundaries that keep them safe? Are you tired of conversations that negate how messy this season of parenting is? Well, I've got you. My name is Casey O'Rourke. I am a positive discipline trainer, parent coach, and the host of the Joyful Courage podcast. Every week, I come to you with an interview digging into tough topics with experts I trust and solo shows that go deep into the personal growth and mindset needed to raise teens in a way that grows them into confident, capable young people. I am not afraid of getting real about the intersection of conscious parenting and the teen years, while also bringing in vulnerability, humor, and lightness. I'm walking the path with you and honored to serve. Listen to Joyful Courage on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you consume podcasts.
So we've covered 2 myths so far about kids and being hyper. The first myth, busted, that sugar makes kids hyper. The second myth, busted, if kids are hyper, they're not ready to go to sleep yet. Bree, this is your favorite myth coming up. Introduce our third myth.
This is a favorite myth because I believed it all the way up until like probably about a few months ago. So, myth number 3 is that if your kid isn't hyper, then they don't have ADHD.
Mm-hmm.
They can't have ADHD because ADHD, the H is hyperactivity. So if my
Mm-hmm.
kid isn't running around, then they must not have it. And I think that that's because it's true that a lot of the common traits of ADHD are being unable to sit still,
Mm-hmm.
especially in calm or quiet surroundings, constantly fidgeting. Like, oh, I don't know if you know anybody that, likes to play with their pen all the time, being unable to concentrate on tasks, excessive physical movement. All those items are common ADHD traits. But
Yeah.
the tricky part of it is, first of all, there's different types of ADHD, and there's different types of, and you can also have AD. Do they still have ADD
They
as its
don't
own separate?
actually. They
Okay,
changed it to all be ADHD and have
okay,
the separate types.
all right.
Yeah, but
So
that was a thing that was in the past, which led to people thinking that you can't have ADHD if you're not hyperactive because it was
exactly,
called ADD.
and maybe that's why, because I'm in that age group that like we grew up of the age of ADD versus ADHD. But
Mhm.
the big thing I wanted to articulate, and this is why I was under the misconception until recently, it's my daughter. So,
Mm.
and I did want to share a little bit. So I'm going to like share about the difference on that, and then I wanted to share a little story about it and how you actually helped me get to the point where my daughter did get diagnosed with ADHD at 15 years old. So, the point is, first of all, that often girls are missed when being diagnosed with ADHD because they don't fit the visual version of hyperactivity.
Me.
Yeah.
Yes, I have it. Yeah. And I didn't even know because my sister does fit the version and she was diagnosed with ADHD. And it didn't even come on my radar until later.
Right. And
Mhm.
so with girls, it can look totally different. Now, here's the funny part. My daughter, when she was little, she wouldn't even sit still to eat dinner. There are so many nights where I had to let her stand next to her chair and jump up and down while she was eating dinner.
Mhm.
And we put her in dance when she was 3 years old because she had so much energy and she needed to burn it off. Before school, I noticed that she did much better if I got her to the playground in the morning so that she could run around and play. Then she would
Mhm.
have a better day at school. There would be less conversation from the teacher about how she was disruptive in class, talking, up and moving around a lot. So you would think that I was like when she was little, had ADHD. And
Mhm.
I did have concerns, and I would bring it up to the teachers because I felt like teachers knew a lot more about it than I did. And I would also, I think I might have brought it up to her pediatrician once or twice, but she didn't have like, she wasn't having any trouble at school. She wasn't having
Mhm.
any trouble at home. So they're like, even if she does have it, it's so minor. Like, what's the point of doing anything about it? Because she's able to do everything just fine.
Yeah.
Well, then middle school hit. Right? And then the very beginning of high school, and she was so struggling, having all this like very impulsive behaviors, not really thinking through consequences, having difficulties with friendships. And then also during that whole course of several years, like math skills and anything that required a long, lengthy attention just pretty much tanked. Like there
Mhm.
was no ability to have any of that. And I remember us talking just this past summer. I was talking to you about all the struggles I was having with my daughter, and I'm like, I just don't, I'm like, I'm trying to help her. Like, we're trying to do therapy, we're trying all these things. And I think she's getting like a little bit better, but not great. I'm noticing that now she's like withdrawing. And you said to me, you're like,
Mhm.
hey, have you looked into like what it looks like in girls?
Mhm.
And I
Yeah.
right? And I fought you on it so much because I was like, "No, no, 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 that's not it. That's not it."
Yeah.
And then you were all like, "Hey, don't you have, like, that doctor's appointment in a couple of weeks?" And, for her, like, "Well, check it." I'm like, "Yeah." She goes, "Have you thought about just having her do a screening or whatever?" "I don't know. I don't think so, blah, blah." And then when we were there, the doctor was saying, "Your affect seems flat. You know, what's going on?" She's talking to my daughter, and I just so I pipe in, and I'm like,
Mhm.
Can we get a screening for ADHD?"
Mhm.
And her dad was there at the visit, and he's not typically at them. And my ex goes, "Well, she doesn't have ADHD. Why would you ask for something like that?" And the doctor looks at him and goes, "Hold on a minute. This actually makes a lot of sense."
Mhm.
And she starts talking about how it presents differently in girls and
Yeah.
how she's like, "Yeah, let's do a screening." So like we did the 150 question screening like a week
Yeah.
later.
That's a big one.
Oh
Yeah.
god, yeah, it was huge. We sit down, it was like her dad, her and I because again being divorced, she was like, we could see different behaviors at different houses. It depended on how you it's objective.
Yeah.
Or not objective.
Subjective.
Sorry, yes.
Subjective. Yeah.
It's
It's all
subjective.
good.
Yeah, how did you see it? And we come back, we fill out the screening, and we didn't agree on all the answers, but, like, when it came to where her dad and I disagreed, obviously, my daughter was the one that was like, "I think I'm more like this." So those were the answers. Come back, and the doctor's like, "Yep, she's got ADHD and attentive." And I'm
Mhm.
like, "Okay, this does make
Yeah.
sense."
Yeah, I'm glad you guys got a diagnosis with it because I mean, I saw it in her just because I know your daughter
Yeah,
and I've known her for a very long time.
exactly.
And just based on everything that's happened throughout the years, it totally made sense in the trajectory of it. But I mean, I was an inattentive ADHDer. I didn't like I had coping skills in place for it. And I think
Mhm.
that's where a lot of women get stuck because we're such people pleasers. We're raised to like make everybody happy and not create a fuss that we develop like strategies to cope with it while all the while we're beating ourselves up inside and being like, why is this so hard for me? There
Yep.
must be something wrong with me that this is so hard.
I'm
And so
so
that's what,
much. I'm so
yeah,
big. I'm so loud. Why am I so much of that?
or like I was a, a gifted and talented student. You just sent me this reel yesterday.
Yes.
Like, and I sent it to my friend Bridget, who like we all went to the same high school. It was a gifted high school. And it said something like, "Hey, if you were in the gifted and talented education program in the 90s, how's your over functioning ADHD, procrastination and perfectionism
And high
going and your high
anxiety.
functioning anxiety?" And if you're also the oldest daughter, I was like, "Oh, I feel seen." Because, like,
Yeah.
ADHD, you don't have to be hyper. It's just, like, this inability to pay attention. And the way I coped with it is specifically when I was in class and in lecture style classes, like, I would zone out for, like, 10 minutes at a time, and it would be so frustrating to me because I would go into a class and be like, "This class, today I am going to pay attention to this class." And I sit there and I look at the teacher and I'm paying attention and I'm making notes. And then something else would like catch my attention. And I would go off this big loop and this like imaginary thing and then thinking of something else and something else and something else. And then I'm like, crap, I have no idea what he just said. Like, and I can't follow the rest of the discussion now. So, I mean, and the way I coped with that is like I would read the textbook at home where I could take my own pace with
Borrow
it. I would
notes,
ask
study with
friends.
friends. Yeah.
But even in that class, I did horribly in that one class where the teacher based much of the class content on lecture. When I took that AP, I got a 2 on the AP out of 5. When I took the European history AP, the one where I had to like take book notes and I had to do notes off the book notes, I got a 3 on that one, which was at least passing, but it definitely wasn't my forte.
Yeah.
All because I can't pay attention to things I'm not interested in.
Right? And like,
Yeah.
I have the same issue. Like I've been waiting to go to the doctor and like, yeah, I need to get my ducks in a row. Procrastination, that's not a sign of ADHD at all. Anyway, but yeah,
But
so
sometimes you need that. You need the procrastination in ADHD. There is a reason I cannot work on things unless I have very defined, like, I'm going to get this, this, and this done during this time block. If I just leave it as an open time block, like I have this entire week on a big project that we've been working on, I've just put like, I blocked out like 3 hours of time here, 3 hours of time here, 3 hours of time here all week long. And I did not put those specific things I was doing. And guess who has not worked on the project at all? Me. Because I have found more quote unquote important things to concentrate on during that time that I have not done it.
well, but I think part of that too is like us just putting off the crap we don't want to do for whatever the reason is.
But I have strategies to
Okay.
do it. Like, I know it's ADHD. I know
Okay.
it is. And, like, I didn't wanna write those books. Like, I mean, I don't wanna say that. I didn't wanna
You did
sit
want to.
down. I didn't wanna sit
There we
down
go.
and write at a time. And so I had parameters. I'm like, "I'm gonna put my timer on for 20 minutes, and I'm just gonna write for 20 minutes because that's how long I could stay focused." And I wrote a book 20 minutes at a time. And so it's interesting, the coping strategies. That's like a whole other episode. Coping strategies women have when they have undiagnosed ADHD.
Right? Yeah.
Yes.
100%. So a couple more
There-
things that I found that I wanted to share, and
Mhm.
I didn't cite my resource in the last one, but this one's mainly taken from an article from the Child Mind Institute. And we have links in the show notes to all the articles that we were using for this for information. But girls with ADHD often have a type called ADHD inattentive. And that means that they have a hard time paying attention, just like Joanne was talking about, staying organized. And, oh, another thing Joanne was talking about, organizing their time, but
Mhm.
they are not hyper. They don't fit into the picture that most people have for ADHD, which is a boy who can't sit still and is bouncing off the walls or the furniture, right?
Mhm.
And a lot of times girls can get mislabeled as spacey,
Yes.
lazy, or
Mhm.
unmotivated.
Yes.
So, real quickly, I wanted to run over just what the 3 types of ADHD are. I have a little image in front of me to read through real quick. So, the first one that we're talking about is inattentive ADHD. That one's inattentive, procrastination, hesitation, and forgetfulness.
Mhm.
Then you have predominantly hyperactive impulsive ADHD, which is problems paying attention, excessive activity, difficulty controlling impulsive behavior, right? And then you have the combined type of ADHD, which is your classic, well, like Coke classic. It's your
Mhm.
classic ADHD that we all have in our heads. The
Yep.
kid that's running around, inattentive, can't stop interrupting, impulsive, cannot follow directions, cannot sit still. So those are your 3 types of ADHD. So just because your kiddo isn't running around bouncing off the walls and is not
Doesn't mean, yeah.
hyperactive, that doesn't mean that they couldn't be on the spectrum. So what can you do? Go to your pediatrician. Have them do a screening or a test. Even if they tell
Yeah.
you no, they don't think your kid needs it. if you have a question in your mind, who does it hurt to go ahead
Exactly.
and just do it? Like that, I think that was my hesitation, was that like I knew that my ex would say absolutely not. I knew that my daughter didn't want to have anything wrong with her. So I knew she would probably be against it. But I have to tell you, and you would agree, right? Like, since we had that doctor's appointment and since we have been working on anxiety and the ADHD type thing, her trajectory has completely changed. She is
Oh,
much
yeah.
happier,
Mhm.
a much more open, active child. She was failing math last year. This year she has all A's and we're coming into
That's
finals
amazing.
next week. Yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I mean, like it has completely changed the world with us, and all because you mentioned it.
Oh, well, thank you.
Yes. Yes. So I just feel like if there's any part of you that's like, maybe with my kid, but I mentioned to the doctor and they said that no, they don't think so what? So what? I still want the screening. Let's
Yeah.
just do it.
Let's just do it. Let's
Let's just
see.
do it.
Let's see where they fall.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So tell us, like, yeah, like we'd love to get feedback. Like, what do you guys think about this episode? How many of these myths are you believing, or did you believe before you listened?
How did we help bust them for you? And until next time, remember, the best mom's a happy mom. Take care of you. We'll talk to you later.
Thanks for stopping by.
No one told us the truth about parenthood. Why? This is the podcast everyone needed before they had kids, because now that those little ones are here, there is a lot to unpack. I'm Rachel Shepardota, and I am your host for the podcast No One Told Us, where we tell the truth about parenting and let you in on all the stuff you really should have known about before having kids. I am the founder of Hey Sleepy Baby, but this podcast is so much more than sleep. We'll be diving into all the topics that you really care about and need to know while you do your best job raising those adorable, tiny humans. Our goal is to just make you feel less alone and less overwhelmed. There are so many things that no one tells us before becoming a parent, and I think that we should really pull back the curtain on becoming a first-time or second-time mom or dad to share the good, the bad, and the ugly. We'll have a little education, a little fun, and a whole lot of heart that goes into each and every episode. So join me and our amazing guests each week to hear us talk about what no one told us.